You know, it's not often that a developer or a writer or a journalist or something is actually held to some kind of standards when it comes to social media. They go on all these tirades, they attack the fans, whether you're just a nerd or a gamer or all. If you're in a fandom, chances are somebody who's a part of that creation process has probably attacked you in some way, shape, or form, either directly or indirectly using social media. And it's not very often that we ever see these people get their feet held to the fire and actually reprimanded for the vile that they spew at the fans. Especially when these fans purely have criticism or commentary to go with it, whatever it is that they're saying. But with Guild Wars 2, a couple of writers have bit the dust recently for doing just that. And I have to say, wow. Normally, that sort of thing is held for anybody who is not far left-leaning. I'm sure you've seen it since the days of Gamergate, back in 2014 and stuff, where if you don't believe with them, if you don't believe as they believe, if you're not on board with them, you are the enemy. And if you say something they don't like, whether it's just disagreeing with them and saying what you feel is right, or your opinion on it, they will dox you. They will come at you. They will form groups that will hunt you down. They will email, they will call your employer and get you fired, and then dance around like they've done some giant, awesome thing because they have totally ruined your life just because you don't agree with them. And I hate that. I really do. Most people, I would say, most of us probably hate that. Except for, of course, if you're on that far left-leaning side of things. But, and then, of course, if somebody ever does it to you, they tend to throw that up everywhere and it's like, oh my god, I'm being attacked! It's like, but you do the same thing. I mean, there's an argument to that. I'm not going to get into it. I mean, you could go ahead and just lay down the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you, or something like that I can't remember right now. But anyway, you know, if you're going to treat somebody a certain way, don't expect to be treated better. Just because you're treating somebody else as like dirt, expect to be treated like dirt in return. But anyway, talking about Guild Wars. So let's get into this. And the Guild Wars is something I've played. It's not something that I'm huge into. I'm not a huge fan of Guild Wars. It was alright. I'm not going to lie, it's okay. But I always tend to go back to WoW, because that's just how I am. World of Warcraft was my first MMO, and that is where I keep going back to. But anyway, so last week, apparently, what is her name again? Jessica Price and Peter Fries. Those were the two who've been fired. They're Guild Wars 2 writers. And apparently last week, Price took part in an AMA regarding making characters in an MMO more personal. Now, if you don't know what an AMA is, that is an Ask Me Anything. This is usually done on a public forum of some sort, or, you know, through streaming or whatever. And that is where people, fans and stuff, can come in and ask you anything. And there's a reason why I'm explaining that. But anyway, let's get into this. Since you're playing an MMO, it is hard to make a character super distinct, since it's supposed to be a representation of a whole bunch of different players. And you know what? I agree with that. It is. It's hard to write a character for an MMO if everybody is playing those characters. You know, there may be 10,000, you know, priests playing the game at any given time. Each one's going to have their own distinct personality based on the person playing them. That's why you have things like role-playing servers and other stuff where people will expand on their backstories and other things, and actually do role-playing and make their character distinct, but as for character interactions with NPCs, they tend to be super neutral in a lot of MMOs. If you make an MMO character a pessimist, for instance, that's not going to suit your player, or who prefers a more sunny disposition. Price tweeted that the expectations of different players make it difficult in a game like Guild Wars 2, World of Warcraft, or Final Fantasy Online to create a truly compelling character. It's not the case in a game like God of War, where you're going in knowing you're going to be playing as a pissed off bald dude, their words, not mine, instead of a character that is supposed to be a chipper cipher for the player. Apparently I can't read either. Anyway, so this is what started everything. We're talking on a public forum, and somebody levels some criticism. The tweet was noticed by a user, Deroir, D-E-R-O-I-R. Anyway, a Guild Wars 2 streamer. So this is somebody who plays a lot of Guild Wars 2, who probably knows the game in and out. But according to this, of course, they responded basically saying that branching dialogues in an MMO would help provide that distinction. Now let's hop over real quick. I'm gonna go over here. The tweet, of course, reads as follows. Let's see. Really interesting thread to read. However, allow me to disagree slightly. Now, this guy is disagreeing with this person in the most polite manner possible at this point. I don't think you can get any more polite than disagree slightly. But anyway, I don't believe the issue lies in the MMORPG genre itself. As your wording seemingly suggests, I believe the issue lies in the contents of the living story narrative design. When you want the outcome to be the same across the board for all players' experiences, then yes, by design, you are extremely limited in how you can conduct the personality of the PC. And I don't have part 3 of that twatter thread. Apparently I've only got the first 2. Yay me. Anyway, point is, dude is politely disagreeing, and yes, he's talking about some branching dialogues. Now, the problem with all this is, there's an MMO out there that actually does this. Yes, it is more work. I understand. It's going to be a lot of work to put branching dialogues into an MMO, but at the same time, dude is completely correct. We're dealing with a public forum, a public AMA, and dude is, going, hey, I slightly disagree with you. It can be done. If you're going to sit there and complain about work on Twitter, and you're going to sit there and link yourself to your work via Twitter, your Twitter is no longer a personal Twitter account. Like, for instance, mine. Mine is a personal Twitter account. Alright? I can say whatever the hell I want on there. It's not linked to where I work. It's not linked to anything other than my YouTube channel. That is mine and mine alone. It is personal, but at the same time, it's also public. Anybody can hop on there and tell me to do whatever, tell me whatever it is that they want to, because I am putting myself out there. That is what one would expect. But at the same time, if I want it to be purely a private Twitter, I would have that shit locked down. Just like I would on Facebook or anything else. If I wanted it to be just me alone, and my friends, my family, then I would lock that shit down, and that there becomes more of a private space, even though it's on a public forum. Random people can't just walk in and say whatever they want, because they can't exactly find it, for one. But anyway, so there is a huge distinction between public and private when it comes to things like social media and how it is handled. So Price, of course, responds and goes into meltdown mode, I guess. But then, of course, does the whole Twitter caption thing where she grabs the tweet, replies to it, and it shows it, and says, "Today I'm being a female game dev," as if that had anything to do with any of this. You got somebody who's saying, hey, branching dialogues are an option, and somehow that is equated to you being a female game dev? Really? Really? I don't understand that mindset. It's like, oh no, you're telling me something that I may already know, or whatever it is, so let's go ahead and put it out there that I'm a female game dev. So it says, "Today, being a female game dev, allow me, a person who does not work with you, explain to you how you do your job." Now this guy never once told her how to do her job. Never once. Made some criticism, or made, there's a word I'm looking for, can't think of what it is, a suggestion of what one could do to fix said problem. And, it's a simple suggestion, make branching dialogues. That's too hard. That would quadruple their work. Hey, I got it, it's going to give you more work, but do you know, the Star Wars, was it the Old Republic, the online, the MMO thing, has branching dialogues for everything? The games, that were listed, of course, WoW, Final Fantasy, and stuff, in Guild Wars, they don't have branching dialogues. It is so much easier to make just neutral content for everybody. They can impose whatever personality they want on the character. But at the same time, there's a whole different level of quality to the product when you take the time to do something like branching dialogues like Star Wars did. I loved the Star Wars game, to be honest, although I have a lot of gripes with that too. But branching dialogues was an interesting thing. Generally, you had like 3 choices, and they would vary on what they are. The system is different now on how it works between light side and dark side, but back when it first came out, you would have like a light side choice, a dark side choice, and a neutral choice if you didn't want either for a lot of the dialogue options. And that was pretty cool. You could go through, like, say, for instance, the very first flashpoint that you're going to encounter on the Empire side. I don't really play the other side that often. Normally I'm a Sith. But anyway, first flashpoint you come to, you come up with an option where, you're taking over this ship and going to do something or whatnot that's, already under your control, and dude has totally screwed up everything. You're given the option to essentially kill the dude or let him live, or, something more neutral along the line. So you can go through, and then players are given, a role by the system to see which action plays out, depending on who chose what. So, even if you chose the light side option, you still get light credit for it, even if the dark side option is the one that plays out. So if I go in there and the dude next to me chooses to let the dude live and, throw him in the brig or whatever, and he rolls higher than me, we will see that option where he just straight up takes over command, tells him, tells somebody else to get him out of here, he's done, and they'll haul him off, and we'll continue the flashpoint. Meanwhile, I could go in there later, and I've chosen to, shoot dude in the head or whatever, and take over the dark side option, and then I win the roll, and then we watch that option play out. It's a pretty interesting thing. I enjoyed that concept a lot. I would really like to see that more in an MMO. But at the same time, we're talking about something that's already exists without it. This game was built from the ground up with these options. So yes, that would take a lot of time to do, but it's not something you should come back and start attacking this person for. And when it comes to things that you may already know, it's also really easy to forget things. You're working on an MMO that has never dealt with branching stories. I'm willing to bet you never even thought about the idea of branching stories other than maybe when you first started working there or something and somebody shot it down. That's going to be my guess. Maybe it did come up at one point. And then somebody over you shot it down. It's like, no, that's too much work. We're not doing that because we're going to have to rewrite everything from this point forward. We're going to have to send out this massive patch to fix everything. We ain't got the resources or the time to do it. And it got shut down. Or maybe because a lot of MMOs don't employ that tactic, and maybe you've never played Star Wars, you've never been exposed to that sort of thing in an MMO, but you have been exposed to it in, say, something like Fallout, which is single player, and, you know, that's just something that they would do in a more single player environment, not an MMO. And that is totally fine. I mean, heck, even me working in the IT field at one point in time, have run across things that were easy fixes. I racked my head for 3 hours on how to fix, something so simple. And it wasn't until I was sitting there talking with a buddy at lunch about it that he goes, have you tried this? And then I feel dumb as a box of rocks because that should have been one of the first things I checked, and sure enough, that was the fix. We're human, we make mistakes, and sometimes we don't think of the obvious. And maybe that is what happened here. You never thought about branching dialogues, but you should have. So you went after this guy as a result. But anyway, Price did not take this too well. Probably because she actually works in the industry and understands that it isn't as simple as just adding dialogue options. If you decide to create 4 options for a generic archetype, you need 4 responses as well. That would go for all of the interactions in the game, which would have the effect of quadrupling the script. Yes, it would mean more work. But that doesn't mean that, dude doesn't think you don't know that it exists. Maybe you just didn't think about it, or it's not on your radar because you're working on an MMO. And he threw it out there, like, you could do branching dialogues if, you're going to sit here and complain about it, for one. Like it's this big thing, you can't figure out how to do it. And then somebody comes along and goes, well, branching dialogues would fix that. Where do you think you get the gumption to suddenly go and go, how dare you tell me branching dialogues? Can't do branching dialogues. It's an MMO. We're going to have to make all these options. Blah, blah, blah. This, that, and the other. So much work. Like you would know that because you don't obviously work in the industry like I do. But you don't have to work in the industry to even make a suggestion like that. I mean, seriously. You're a gamer. You've played lots of games. You've seen it done 1,000 different ways. To make some, a suggestion, well, you could do this if it's really that big of a deal. Really? Come on. Anyway, but Price hopped back onto Twitter and responded that the next rando asshat who tried to explain her own job to her would be insta-blocked. She also pointed out that she's been writing in games for over decades. Price followed this up by retweeting the conversation, noting her gender and referring to her to the response as someone who does not work with her, trying to tell her how to do her job. And nobody told you how to do your job. So you were in a public forum. But of course, the rest of this is, her going on about how dare somebody come into her space and talk to her and tell her how to do her stuff and all this other stuff. And it's not your space. It really isn't. You're on a public forum. You're in the middle of an AMA. And somebody was like, hey, you could do this. Have you thought about that? Because there's a legitimate reason that you may not have forgotten or never thought about it. Then again, maybe you did think about it and it got shot down and you're salty about that. If that was the case, you can just say, a simple response of, well, I did think about that, and I brought it up with so-and-so or whoever, higher up, and they shot down because it's going to be a lot more work and we would have to rewrite everything from scratch again. Or add, 2 new dialogues options into the already existing game that's been around for quite a while, and it's going to be too much work and we don't have the, the funds or the time to do it. That's a simple response. It would have gotten the point across that, you've already done, you thought about it. problem is, the higher-ups don't want to do it. But instead, you go on this Twitter tirade where you attack the fans, and then you're like, any other asshat that has any bright ideas, you get an insta-blocked. As if, that Twitter account is your own private sanctuary, when it's really not at this point. This is what you've done so far. You've created a Twitter account. You don't have it locked down. You have added, your company in your information. You've used that company in order to get your blue check mark to get verified. You've used that company to build clout, to build, a fan base, a follower base. Maybe not really a fan base, because let's face it, a lot of people like myself don't follow people like you because we like you. We don't follow you because we want to hear your opinions on whether or not hot dogs should be a legal thing, because somehow it is some kind of sign of toxic masculinity or something, and a sign of the patriarchy and need to be banned worldwide or any crap like that. We follow you because you write on a game or you develop on a game, and we're interested on what's coming out of said game. For instance, I may follow somebody who's, in Square Enix right now. Square Enix. Forget, Squaresoft is no more. Anyway, Square Enix, because they're working, I found out that they're working on the new Final Fantasy VII HD remake. Being such a huge fan of that franchise, I don't really care what else is they're spouting, but if the second they drop something Final Fantasy VII HD remake related, I'm on that. I want to look at that. I want to see what they've dropped. Maybe they've dropped some concept art. Maybe they've showing a short video of something they've done or whatnot, or talking about the new battle system, of how things are going to work a little bit. Because that's information that I want. I'm not following them for their political spectrum or their beliefs or, their religion or whatever it is. I'm following them specifically for a particular product that they're working on. Let's face it, most people following you probably follow you for that, but you've used your company's name to gain that following. It's like if I went out and was like, hey, I work for BioWare. I'm a designer. I'm also working on X new game. Yeah, that's me. I'm working on that. Come follow me. I've got 20,000 followers now. They're following me for me. No, they're following me because I'm working on this stupid game over here. That's what a majority of these people are following you for. So when you start touting your company around to gain this following, you've got it in your info and stuff. Your private Twitter ceases to be a private Twitter. It is now a public Twitter representing that company. That is why the guys over there at Guild Wars 2, I can't remember the actual company that works on it. That is why they let you go. Because you're running around claiming that you're a Guild Wars 2 developer. And then you're attacking the fan base. And I understand sometimes, customers, fan base, they can get really bad. And sometimes it's warranted. I've been there, I've seen that. I've worked customer service in the past. I remember this older guy down at the checkout at whatever store it was that I worked at years and years ago. And dude is clearly like 80-something, 70-something. He's old. By state law, you have to check their ID, regardless of how old you think they are. Of course, we had a new cashier. Cashier is trying to follow the law, like she should. And dude is raising Cain, yelling, spitting, and all this other stuff because he's trying to buy beer, and she cards him. I don't know why that was such an issue. It should be as easy as pulling out your wallet and going, well, here's my ID. At least, you drove there without said ID, then I can understand if there's an issue. But he was by himself, so I'm assuming he drove himself because we don't exactly have public transportation around here, other than maybe one taxi service. that has like one cab, because I occasionally see it floating about, and I'm like, oh, we have a taxi? Cool. Anyway, we don't have a whole lot of public transportation options around here, so if you want to get somewhere, you drove yourself. So either A, he's there without his license and drove himself without his license, so he's upset that he's now being carded. Or B, he can't take the 2 seconds to pull it out and has to yell at the cashier. Of course, the company sided with the cashier, had the dude personally escorted off the property and banned for his tirade. But if the cashier, on the other hand, in that situation, started attacking this man, you're 80-some years old. The fuck are you doing buying Bud Light? You don't need that. You're gonna die. Blah, 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 and starts laying into this old man. Then you know what the company would have done? Let the cashier go. You know? But, yeah, so I can understand why the people higher up over there in the game let these people go. Because just like the cashier, if they were attacking a customer for the product that they buy or whatever, or, you know, maybe the customer came up and was like, you know, I've been having a problem finding X, and say the customer's looking for something, and I know personally some things are in weird locations. Like, for instance, maybe they're looking for a particular, I don't know, bracelet or something, and there's a whole jewelry section in the store, and it's nowhere inside in this jewelry section because, for whatever reason, the people higher up have decided this is going to be a hot ticket item. We need to stick it in the middle of an aisle somewhere that has lots of traffic near the registers. And so they'll do that, right? So you go in looking for this particular thing that you saw on the sales paper, and you immediately head to jewelry because it's a jewelry item. To be met with no assistance because, let's face it, having somebody standing in the jewelry counter all day never happens, because they've got them doing other things in other departments surrounding said jewelry department, but that's another thing for another day. And you're looking around for 30 minutes or so until you finally find somebody and ask them, and then maybe they don't know because they don't work over there. And then finally you find it, and it's been in front of register 15 this whole time, way down there. And you tell the cashier, and it's like, I've been looking for this for 45 minutes. It's over here next to your register. I had no idea. It's a jewelry item. Wouldn't it be better to put it in jewelry? And then the cashier going off on them for making such a suggestion. How dare you tell us how to do our job? You don't work here. You don't know why we put it there. Seriously? It would be the same thing. Cashier would get fired. Customer would be apologized to. And this whole thing with the Guild War rider, same thing. You're gonna attack the fans over making a suggestion in a public forum, and then go around as if you're the victim in your private Twitter, when it's clearly not a private Twitter, because you've used your company to get that following, because I guarantee you wouldn't have it if it wasn't for the fact that you've worked with whatever company that you were working for at the time. But hey, that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you think that they've gone a little too far and fired these people? Or do you think it's, on the nose? It was right. Let me know down in the comments below. Until then, I'll talk to you later. See ya. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, smash that like button, and always subscribe for more. And of course, there are other videos floating around somewhere on the screen, so click one of those and see if you can find something that suits your fancy. Till then, I'll see you later. Bye.